This morning, we begin our new sermon series, Wounded but Held. I'm experiencing something this morning that I've never experienced before, and I want to apologize, and I'll say this and then we move on. I don't know what's going on with me right now, but I feel all sorts of flustered. My breathing is really heavy, some sort of panic attack, anxiety attack. I don't know. But like I said, I'm saying this and then we're moving on. But just bear with me this morning. Bear with me, be with me. Pray for me because, like I said, I've never experienced this before and I don't know what's going on. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna go through this. We start our new sermon series, Wounded but Held, this morning. We end our sermon series over What Do You Desire? We start this new one called Wounded but Held. The main premise points of this series is how the world, people will fail you. But ultimately God doesn't. God will not. God will provide. God will be there for us. And so we begin with Ezekiel 34, 1 through 16, as Angie read to us this morning. And we begin talking about how God is our good shepherd. In 1994, there was a movie released that at that time probably had no idea the impact it would have on the world. This movie is quite possibly the most well-known movie of all time. It's great for families, for kids, for adults. Many people reference this movie. Many love this movie. And if you don't like it, you're just wrong. That's sorry. The movie in question is The Lion King. Now, I think it is safe to assume that if not all of us, most of us have seen this movie. Now, I will say now, there are some spoilers that I will say today, but in my defense, it's been 30 years. You've had plenty of time to watch this movie if you hadn't. But just in case you haven't seen it, or maybe you have seen it, we're going to go over a little bit of context. So there are plenty of characters in this movie, but I want to focus on three today. Three being Mufasa, Scar, and Simba. Mufasa being the good shepherd, the king, the one who everyone loves. He protected and he taught and he provided and he sacrificed for Pride Rock where they lived. And Simba was his son, the one who was to inherit it all, the one to become king if anything happened to his dad. And then Scar. No one likes Scar, right? Couldn't stand Scar. I don't like Scar. Maybe it's just me. He was the false king, the false shepherd, right? He was power hungry, manipulative, destructive. He was selfish and just wanted more. So much so, spoiler, he killed his own brother. He killed Mufasa in an attempt to take over, to become this king, not rightfully, but to become the leader of where they lived, Pride Rock. Now, after some time of him becoming the king, he had this poor leadership, everything about it. And there's no beating around the bush. He was just not a great leader, right? And after some time of him being the leader, the land became very symbolic of just how bad of a leader he was. The land dried up. There was no water for them. The food became little to none. It was ultimately a bad situation. Poor leadership doesn't just wound people, but it leads entire systems to failure. In verses 1 through 10, we see God, he condemns these shepherds. He tells them that they too are not great leaders. They were also selfish and power-hungry leaders. We see in the first 3 verses that they only took care of themselves. They always put themselves first, making sure that they were taken care of. These shepherds were expected to be better. They were called for better, yet they failed. They had jobs to lead, to teach, to help, to protect, yet all they could worry about was themselves. How many times have we seen this in our own lives? I know I have witnessed it myself. It is dark and it is a sad place. These shepherds, the ones who were looked up to, they had a responsibility to care for the people. They were expected to protect them, to see that their needs were met. They were put into that position for a reason. But they only cared for themselves. They let their people down and they failed them. Now, as we've already said this morning, humans will continue to fail. No matter what we do or say, inevitably, in some way or fashion, we will fail. The Lion King is an animated movie for kids, yet it unfortunately tells the truth about human nature. I could have added this to my sermon series last week, but I wanted to begin opening up this new one here. But we, as humans, we desire this control and power, and many of us do not even realize it. Scar was and is many human beings today. Greedy, selfish, power-hungry people willing to do anything to get that power or control. And of course, once he got it, he was an awful leader. We take a look at what happens when we have awful leaders. In verse 5 and 6, it tells us they scattered. There was no good shepherd there, so they ran. They began to scatter. If I had $1 every time I heard someone mention church hurt. It is way too often that people are hurt in the church. Oftentimes, those people run. And I can't say I blame them. I can't say that I blame them. In a place that is supposed to be full of loving, caring, Christ-like people, yet they run into the opposite. And it's even worse when it is the leaders that are in this position that are doing it. We as the church are held to a higher standard. We as the church are expected to be better. And we should be expected to be better. We are called to be Christ-like, not to just like Christ. When people feel betrayed, they flee. They flee from trust, from community, and even from God. God's people were scattered because those meant to lead them didn't. Not only did these leaders exploit their people, they neglected their people. They abused them by neglecting them. They didn't meet their needs. They withheld food and basic necessities for them. The ones who didn't flee, who stayed, were still led astray. It's scary to think that there are, unfortunately, still many leaders or shepherds like this today. Unfortunately for us, I think that all of us here at some point in our lives have been impacted by a negative shepherd. All it takes is one bad leader or shepherd, whatever, fill in the blank, with whatever to make us want to run if we don't run. The people of Israel here, they had the worst thoughts. They thought God had left them. They thought God had forgotten about them. These people were depending on their shepherds, the ones who were supposed to be their leaders, who were supposed to help them, supposed to guide them. They were there to protect them. Yet these shepherds were doing the opposite. The people who thought they were seeing or following these godly leaders were actually following godless leaders. Pride Rock needed their true king. Simba was supposed to be the one, right? He was the son of Mufasa, the rightful heir, the one to take over if anything happened. But he ran. When Pride Rock was led by Scar, the one who wasn't supposed to be, the land mourned and suffered. When Pride Rock was led by the undeserving king, the one who was power hungry, the selfish one, the one who only cared for himself and would do anything to just have more power, the one who unfortunately symbolizes many humans today, it all began to go downhill. But the return of the rightful king, Simba, that changed everything. And verses 11 through 16 tell us about our true king. In verses 11 through 16, we see just how amazing our God is. This healing, peace, love, comfort, all of this comes from God. Notice that God doesn't try to outsource any of these to a simple, mere human being. God does it himself. God does it all for himself, from himself. This verbiage begins to change, or it changes immediately. The first 10 verses, we see God tell them what they were doing wrong. He says, you were doing this, or you were not doing this. Then God steps in and says, so I will. I will find them. I will seek them. I will tend to them. I will let them lie down in grazing lands. I will feed them good pastures. I will find the lost. The restoration we need as a church, as a country, and as a world. This restoration is not what we can fix, what we can do to fix it, but it's when we begin to allow God to work in it. God is not Scar. God is not the parent who left you. God is not the pastor who failed you. God is not the one who feeds himself first. God is not the boss that hurt you. God is the shepherd who searches for you. God is the one who brings you home. God fights the wolves on your behalf. God brings you these good pastures that you need. God feeds you when you are hungry. God comforts you when you are hurt. It's easy for those of us who have been broken or hurt to feel invisible. I understand for many of us, we may even want to be invisible, to hide in the background, to just blend in. If no one sees me, no one can call on me or whatever, and then I can't mess up and I can't be hurt again. If no one sees me, I can't build these relationships and get close to someone and then ultimately get hurt again. If no one sees me or knows I'm here, then I just will be able to blend in and I don't have to worry about getting hurt. Hear me when I say this. God sees you. God knows you, and God loves you. Likewise, many of us have built a wall or a shield around us. I am guilty of this myself. Mine is a little bit more personal. Mine is more so with my parents. Many of you know my childhood, a little bit about it, what that looked like. But mine in particular is with my parents. I was hurt by them. I wasn't led properly. Now, I now understand that they tried their best, and I understand that, but it doesn't make it hurt any less. Because of that, I myself built a wall. I built this guard over myself. I hardened my heart and mind. I blocked out any kind of guidance from others. So my question for you all is, where do you need to let God shepherd you again? Despite all the failed leaders, where are you withdrawn from? Are you willing and able to let our faithful God shepherd you? Despite all the hurt and wrongdoing, all the failed leaders, the letdowns, the expectations that were failed, with all those who led us astray or neglected us, let go and let God. I don't know what Scar as in the character, Scar has impacted your life. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a teacher or a boss or a friend. Maybe a pastor. Maybe someone you looked up to. But their leadership left you dry and empty. You felt broken or forgotten. You maybe wanted to feel invisible, or perhaps you wanted to run away. Remember these verses today. People will fail you. Unfortunately, there will be lots of leaders that hurt us and let us down. But God promises good to us. We serve a God that loves us. We serve a God that serves us. We serve a God that will be there for us. When human shepherds fail, God steps in. God will not abandon us. God comes to find the lost. He comes to bind and heal the broken. He brings us to good pastures. The question is, will we let Him shepherd us again? Let us pray.